Welcome to the first episode of Bobby and Builders. This show is about what it really takes to build and eventually exit a small business the right way. I'm Bobby, president of BizScout. Before this, I built and scaled marketplaces, but I've also been on the other side, and I've owned franchises, and one that even completely humbled me.
I'm Mike. I'm head of supply for BizScout. That means I can see the businesses before they hit the market. I get to hear what owners think they're worth, and I also get to see what the market thinks of them.
We get asked all the time, what is my business actually worth? So today, we're not giving theory. We're walking through my own experiences, what I thought my business was worth, and what it really was worth. If I could go back, I would have thought about exit value much, much earlier.
That is a good point, Bobby, because when I speak to business owners, I try to convey to them that multiples in value come when the business becomes less risky, when it's more predictable, and when it's easy to transfer. So I think that's a good point for us to tell us your story, how you were a business owner of a restaurant, and then what that entailed for your business value and your business ownership journey.
Yeah, that was exiting during the pandemic is not something I would recommend for business owners. Pandemics, I just generally don't recommend for business owners. But we really had this idea. When I say we, it was my brothers and I. We had this idea back in about 2014 that we should open a Chronic Tacos franchise in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was living. I had a little bit of money from my days working at American Express. I had signed a couple big contracts, got a nice bonus. My brothers were the younger one was interested in managing a restaurant. My middle brother was doing real estate development, and he had already had experience building out things. So we were all we had our own little piece of this that we thought would be good for us to go into business together. And we all love Chronic Tacos. And to this day, it's still the best taco shop that you could possibly go. So I reached out specifically to the franchise and said, hey, I would love to open one of the franchises in Phoenix, Arizona. I know that there was one that was actually being developed and built right then, a little bit away from where I was living. I was like, but there's this other great location. I saw it. I talked to the commercial real estate broker before. What do you think? And the franchisor, the head, Randy Weiner, and everyone else said, Randy was like, you sound like the exact type of profile we're looking for. Here's the type of build out that we would need. Here's all the franchise disclosure documents. Here's all this. And I immediately said, oh, this is a real thing. Like there's a lot more to this. It's not just open the shop, license the name, and off to the races. And to Chronic Tacos' credit and benefit, they make you go in with your eyes wide open. Like this is not a part-time job. This is not a set it and forget it. Most of the model is set up so that you need to it's an owner-operated franchise model until you hit scale. And then you can start hiring different operators to come in and manage these as you have multiple locations. I did my due diligence. I went through the list that they give you of other franchise owners, people who have expressed interest, or even other people that have closed shops and why they closed their shops and what happened. And so I wanted to make sure I knew what I was getting into ahead of time. I did. I thought that I had uncovered every stone, turned over every stone. I don't think anybody could turn over the pandemic stone. So what happened was we built out the restaurant. We got an SBA loan. This is a really good point, actually. A lot of people think the SBA loan is like, okay, well, I'm just going to it's easy to get because the banks are backed by the government. As long as I have the down payment and the business model works, I can go secure it. That's mostly all true. But there's a hidden twist in it, which is like you're personally guaranteeing this thing. So before the government pays the bank, you're actually on the hook. So I had to pledge my house. I had to pledge my family's cabin. I had to pledge everything that I had to secure this loan, a loan big enough to actually build out this restaurant. Okay, so I paid the franchise fee. I secured the loan with a bunch of personal guarantees. I opened the restaurant, and we had, through my connections at American Express and through some other friends of friends, we had probably the biggest franchise, maybe the biggest franchise grand opening that Chronic Tacos had ever had to that point. One of the co-owners of the franchise and a store owner is colloquially known as Wee Man from Jackass.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's great. He showed up for the franchise opening, was signing autographs, taking pictures with everyone. We also had some of the Arizona Cardinals players there, to open with us. It was just fantastic, and business boomed. Like, we were doing great for months. My brother was running the restaurant. I was in the back helping out day to day when I could. I still had my day job at American Express. My other brother was in and out he was definitely in the construction, and he kept coming in and out afterwards, mostly just to get the free food, but that's another story. Fast forward some time. Business levels off, like it always does. You have a hot restaurant opening, business levels off, it normalizes. We were doing decent. We were doing in profit a few $100s a day. So that adds up over time. In a restaurant with thin margins, it was an okay investment. Eventually, the idea is the rent stays consistent, the efficiency from your workers goes up, so you don't need as many for as long, et cetera, et cetera. The food cost stays kind of consistent, goes up over time, and then you just raise prices naturally with inflation. And that should carry your profit into 10 years, 15 years. You can keep the restaurant open for a long time. Okay. That's fine if everything stays consistent, and nothing ever stays consistent in business. So the first thing that happened that was a real shock to the system was the minimum wage laws in Arizona.
Okay.
So the minimum wage laws in Arizona came through, and everyone who was a business owner at that time in Arizona that was employing minimum wage people immediately saw the impact, because it's not just the people that are just part-time, come in for a couple hours and just looking for an extra shift to pick up a few dollars. The biggest problem is that if you have to raise the minimum wage for that person, your head chef is not going to take X plus that. They're going to want more money than that, because now the new bar has been raised. So that person goes up. And then the next person goes up. The manager of the restaurant wants more money because they don't want to get paid the same as the head cook, and et cetera, et cetera. So the inflation isn't just on the lower part. It's literally the entire labor stack that goes up when minimum wage gets hit.
Your whole base gets increased by that amount, and then everything else has to follow to keep the consistency of your salary base. If not, you don't have a good, happy employees.
That's exactly right. So in order to keep everyone, we had to raise everyone up quite significantly. So that ate into the margins to where we were pretty close to break even just about every day. It was at that point, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, but I should have raised prices. I didn't raise prices because I thought that, hey, we'll normalize this out. I don't want to raise them I don't want them to be directly correlated to the minimum wage increase, although a lot of restaurants in Phoenix did. They immediately some even slapped on fees that were after, like I come from the ticketing world, the fees that happen after you check out, like, an automated tip, an automatic tip to offset the minimum wage increase. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to treat my customers right. I wanted to treat my employees right. And so we kept everything the same and just ran it at break even. And then the pandemic hit. And then there was no margin, there was no buffer, there was no cushion. We can get into your former employers about how much they take from Uber Eats and DoorDash from a restaurant owner, but that was the end. That was the end of the Chronic Tacos experiment for me.
So that was a great experience, and probably a roller coaster for you, because you had everything in there. You had excitement, then you had the true hitting up about owning a business and the level up, and then a few surprises here and there. So in order to get to this piece of understanding value and how your roller coaster also meant a roller coaster for your business value, can you walk us through like your revenue and how that was behaving, and also how your bottom line was also impacted? You mentioned a little bit about it, like with the minimum wage eating up your profits, but how are you perceiving, and now that you understand as the president of BizScout, the value and what was your assessment if you were to look at it from now and your experience like selling businesses to that point?
For us, there were 3 key components, or 4 key components really. Every restaurant, but I think largely every business goes through these things. How much revenue is coming in the door, and is it consistent? I could say without a doubt, yes, revenue was consistent. It was the other things that were changing around the edge. The rent. Your rent cannot be a more than significant portion of your overall revenue. And if it is, then you have a significant problem. You need to have your revenue carry your, you need to have revenue high enough to outstrip your rent increases. Your cost of goods sold, whatever that might be, ours was consistent because that's part of the benefit of being in a franchise model is you know what your cost of goods sold are. You know what the food cost is going to be because you have the franchise behind you. They're buying in bulk. They're ordering from high quality suppliers and getting the best stuff. And then finally, your labor cost. Your labor cost is the number one variable cost. And if you can get it down, you can have margin. If you can't get it down, you don't have margin. And long story short, we were doing a good job. We had probably 7% margins for a fast casual restaurant. That's an okay margin. We had 6-7% margins, and then the minimum wage came in, and that all evaporated.
That's really interesting because it takes me to my conversations with sellers nowadays, and when I speak to them, one of the things that sometimes I notice is, or I try to prone to, is do they understand their P&L, right? And that's some of the first things that we ask for is like, give me your financials. Are they clean? Are they understandable? And it's not about just the cleanliness. Is can we communicate the story to somebody else?
Yeah.
And are you in line with the expectations of the industry, right? Because that's your benchmark of are you operating good or not. So it is very interesting that you're mentioning the different parts of the P&L and how they affected. At that time, did you have an understanding of how those were correct or not versus where they should be?
I'll go back to the benefit of the franchise model is, yes, you do know what they should be because they tell you what they should be in a good restaurant. Franchises, I think, get a bad name, like a bad rap a lot of times. There's a huge benefit to being as part of a franchise. People you don't open a Chick-fil-A restaurant and say like, oh, that was the worst decision of my life. Like everybody that owns a Chick-fil-A restaurant is pretty happy with their life. McDonald's turns down more people than they let into the McDonald's ecosystem. Like it's a little bit about the entrepreneur, but the system itself is set up so that you can be successful. Yes, there are bad franchises, but Chronic Tacos is definitely not one of them. Chronic Tacos was a great franchise because they told you where everything should be. So I knew where everything should be. Plus, I had the benefit of I had an MBA in my background already. I'd worked at American Express for a number of years. Like I'd seen tons and tons of different financials. Shout out Simon, Yellow Jackets. But I think that the biggest shock to me was how much of this was out of my control inside the P&L. I knew where they needed to be, but once the externalities happened, like how much do I actually have control over these things is very little.
Yeah, that's a good point because there were little you could do. Now, looking in hindsight, were there actions, and you mentioned some that like the price increases. What is your learning from that experience in saying, if you have an opportunity to take an action in the business, do it? Like, how would you take that if you were returned to that spot in time?
Once it's out of your control, you can't get it back. But if you look at your business in the way that I should have been looking at it at the time, there was so much in my control that I could have done earlier. If I'm a small business owner today, which we are technically here at BizScout, I would immediately think, how much can the market actually sustain for a price increase right now? Like, what is the trade-off between increasing prices by 5% and the drop-off in demand with that price increase, the associated price increase? If I would have done that, I would have had enough margin built in to carry through the minimum wage with very little impact. The overall net value of my company would have been stable. To hit your point directly, the fact that there was an opportunity for me to potentially exit my business earlier when I was profitable, and then when the profit margin shrank to zero, how many people want to buy a business that has zero profit margin? I messed up. And then COVID hit, and then it became a cascade of failures, like a waterfall of failures. I don't think that I could have ever gotten the handles back on once it got off the rails. But if I would have made the moves early, then it would have been a different story. Valuation would have been a different story entirely.
I love that because I'm hearing something really interesting, which is twofold. One is manage your business as if you were going to sell it,
Yeah,
right? Because that
absolutely,
it's pretty, right? And if it's ready to be sold, it means it's good to keep as well.
That's right.
Right? And it's a good benchmark to operate at that level of clean financials. You also mentioned some of your brothers were there. Some business owners that want to buy a business is like, can I not be there? Is there dependency on the owner, right?
Yep.
And the more you build it, in order to get there, is not so much, in my experience, about the fact that it's not owner dependent. It just means that you have really good processes that you can delegate.
Absolutely.
And do more. So I really like what you're saying, because it really connects to, am I operating my business well? That means that I can provide more value for somebody else to buy my business. So there's a correlation for what I'm hearing in business value to good operations and being ready to sell. Because if you're operating well, that means you can go to market at any time.
Exactly. It's working on your business versus working in your business. And there's nothing wrong with either one. You can work in your business if you like working in your business while you work on your business. That wasn't for me. I needed to keep my day job. Luckily, I had brothers and partners and everybody else that were involved in this endeavor in order to get it done. But for me, working in my business was fun. Like I remember a day very like super clear where an entire softball team from California, they were making a road trip to Phoenix for a big tournament, and they just flooded in because Chronic Tacos is a California brand, and so they saw Chronic Tacos on Google Maps, and they're like, "Oh yeah, got to go here. We're going to stop after our tournament." They beeline for Chronic Tacos, and they flooded the whole thing. It was one of the most fun days we've ever had. It was the busiest day we ever had because there was an entire set of teams there, and we had to sling the tacos and get the burritos done and everything else. But I loved working in the business as much as working on the business at the time. But there's a difference in the valuation. Like as long as your processes are good and you can hand them off, like you don't have to work in your business if you don't want to. You shouldn't have to.
That's a great learning, right? Because then you see that you don't have to want to sell to do these things. And being ready to sell doesn't mean that you go to market.
Correct.
Right? It just means that you're doing things in a good way, and keeping that perspective, and you tell me, gives you flexibility. So if you had thought about being ready to sell at that time, when the minimum wage hit or when the pandemic hit, do you think you could have done something different, or you could have protected the valuation of your business?
Yeah, I think the price increase when the market could have sustained the price increase was when everyone else was raising prices, and I chose not to for altruistic reasons. I don't know what the right word would be. Like I chose not to. That absolutely hurt the valuation of the business. So if you can raise prices, you should raise prices. That's number one. Number two, there's no shame in asking for help earlier than later. If I were to talk to brokers when as soon as the profit margin started falling and I saw that the minimum wage was actually having an impact, I should have went and called a business broker immediately and said, like, here's what's going on. I can see a problem coming down the pipe. Let's have a conversation about what this looks like and how I might be able to offset it. And maybe we can get this thing listed, and somebody else who's a better manager than me has done multiple franchises could actually do this and make it profitable or more profitable. The reason why people buy businesses is because they see an opportunity to make something more profitable, right? But sometimes they're just too far gone, like our businesses was during the pandemic. But there were things that I could have done earlier. Prices, talk to the right people, hire better restaurant managers would have been good. My brother was great, but this was his first time running a restaurant. Me stepping in, I didn't know anything about the restaurant, so whenever he wanted to bounce out and go on vacation, who am I? Like I can't run a restaurant. Running a restaurant is much, much harder than running a business, like the rest of the business. That's a very hard industry, just for the record. But yeah, I think 2 or 3 of those moves would have really changed the valuation, the outcome of what eventually happened, which was us closing the doors.
That's really interesting. Now let's imagine that you still had the business, right? And you came to BizScout. How would you take it? Like, what would you analyze? What questions would you ask? How would you evaluate that business today if it came through our platform?
So if I'm a buyer and I'm looking at something like a restaurant, the first thing I would do is I would look at the 4 things that I mentioned. What's the revenue? What's the rent? How much of your revenue is eaten up by your cost of goods sold immediately, because that's going to be something that's hard to fix. And because it's a franchise, I would look at all the franchise fees, because franchise fees they're off the top, and they can be the royalties are pretty punitive in some models. So I would look at those things and I'd say, this one's a little bit tight, but if I can get X down during the negotiation, hey, if I can renegotiate the rent, if I can cut the franchise fee, if I can make sure that I don't have a transfer fee on the franchise, which a lot of franchises do. There are different things that I would look at as a buyer if I were interested in purchasing a restaurant, specifically a franchise restaurant, and I would check the box, and turn around and say, this is good or bad deal.
Now, thank you for the answer. I think that gives a good perspective on the restaurant business. But like outside of that,
Sure.
as a buyer, how would you evaluate a business coming in? Because I understand there's other aspects like customer concentration.
Yes.
And behavior. Like, for example, something that I picture when I hear your story is as I see revenue moving up and down and profits going up and down and your P&L moving, all of that affects the value, right? So I see the value of your company like going up and down as you mentioned those things.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit more about, as a buyer, what would be the things that you would qualify and then say, this will hurt my multiple?
You hit on one of the main ones, which is customer concentration. Like if you have one big revenue source and it's reliant on one single customer to generate, that's tough. Like I'm gonna put a discount on that, because if that one goes away, the entire business might fall apart, and that's a tough place to be. Second thing I'd look for just in general in the industry is like, where can I actually add value? So if you're a seller, I'll talk from both angles. If you're a seller and you're thinking, I'm running this business the best I possibly can, you still know what your gaps are, and you know what you haven't done in the business or you haven't been able to achieve in the business that other people like you might be able to achieve. For me, marketing is not my specialty, as you know well here at BizScout, which is why I love being partnered with Cody and Contrarian Thinking and all of the things that they do for us. But that hasn't changed since my days at Chronic Tacos. Like, I was not a great marketer. I could not come up with great ad copy. If it wasn't coming directly from the franchise, I would have a big struggle trying to come up with my own local marketing advertising campaigns. So if someone came in and they were a great marketer, it was someone from American Express, and they were a great marketer, and they turned around and came back and said, I want to open a restaurant, and all I need to do is put out some great ads to get people into the door. Dude, that's value add right away. That's value add immediately. So where can you add value? Customer concentration. I think the third biggest thing is, do you think that the model itself, the industry itself, is going up or down? Because if there's, it's restaurants. We'll use fast casual restaurants as a really good example right now, but we can use a lot of different industries. Do you think fast casual restaurants are going up or down right now when people have less disposable income? Right? The answer is probably down. You're either going to spend one time at a really big, like fancy restaurant as a big expense, or you're going to go to fast food. Like this $15 burrito is what's really everyone's cutting out right now. So if you can see where the overall market is going, that's what I would be evaluating as a buyer. And from a seller's perspective, I'd want to get out before that actually happened.
That is very interesting. And I'm trying to translate what you're saying in your story to my conversations with other buyers or sellers. Mm-hmm. When I talk to them, they want to partner with BizScout. And the way I'm translating what you're saying is, how secure is my revenue? Is my revenue going to go up? Is my revenue going to go down? How are my costs going to behave? Ultimately, it falls down to the numbers, right? Like,
yep.
And one of the challenges that I see, and I would like to get your point of view on this, is valuations and what you can sell your business for. It's not about the feeling, right? Correct. And when you talk a lot about sellers, like, I feel it should be worth like this or that because I've been on it 30 years. It cost me sweat and blood and tears. But in reality, the new person buying it is not going to care. They're going to care about the story because it's important, but it's not going to drive the multiples up.
Correct.
It's, can I buy a business that I can manage, that it's going to grow, and that I have some certainty that it's going to grow, right? Because industry is going up, because the business is doing well, because it has great management. So when you were at Chronic Tacos, did you have realistic or even thought about the value of the business?
No, not until it was too late. Not until it was too late. I did think about the value of the business when it was too late. When the brokers that I did eventually call said, all I get are calls from restaurants right now during COVID. And I have no space for you. I couldn't even put you on Biz Buy Sell. It would cost me too much money. At the time, BizScout didn't exist. That's why Biz Buy Sell was the only place. Now listed on BizScout for free. All of the different check boxes of that you just mentioned, specifically around feelings, I had no idea of what it was. But importantly, I always try to, especially here at BizScout, I try to advise everyone to take feelings out of it on the buyer and seller side, because to your point, it is just the numbers. And if you start to get emotionally attached on either side of this transaction, it'll fall apart. The most important thing that you can do is look at the numbers. And if you're on the seller side, improve the numbers the best you can, get them knocked out in top shape. And then if you're on the buyer side, start picking apart. Like, this is a temporary fix. This is customer concentration is too high. Whatever the negotiations end up at, as long as you remove feelings from it and talk about the numbers, you can usually get a deal done.
And that's a great point as well for the audience, because there's not such thing as, I want to sell, let me go to market.
Correct.
There's preparation
Yep.
on getting there. And everything or almost everything can be fixed if you work with it on time. Actually, recently we talked about a seller of us. We sent it to one of our partners, and they're going to help them to get ready to sell. They're going to be working for 1 year probably in making sure that everything is working, that they bring things to the right levels, that they accommodate things where they need to be, they fix the financials. Do you think if you had done that previously at the right time, that your outcome could have been different?
Absolutely. If I had talked to someone, we have great partners at Exit Factor, just that help us out with our small business owners who are getting prepped to sell. If I had the chance to talk to someone like an expert in exit valuations, my outcome would have been entirely different. I didn't even know something like that existed at the time. But importantly, I wouldn't know the questions to ask. I had no idea what would have improved my valuation. I just know, I was making money and now the minimum wage hit. Now I'm not making money, so looks bad. Maybe I should do something different. Try something. Maybe advertise more, and then it goes down further because it didn't turn around. Like, it was not a good death spiral to be caught in. But if I were able to talk to somebody who was an expert ahead of time about, your business needs to have these 3 things in order to be more valuable to potential buyers, I could have gotten out a lot earlier if I wanted to get out at all. But either way, I would have been ahead of the game in terms of, to your point earlier, whether I wanted to stay in or not. If you run it like you're going to exit at any time, talk to people, prep like you're exiting all the time, you can actually run and manage your business a lot better, even if you never list it.
So would you advise sellers that are out there, like, wondering, or even not wondering, because that's the beauty of it, like the ones that are not wondering, probably they're at the right time because they haven't gotten the red signals that they should exit.
That's right.
Is that the right time for them to look for advice, to explore what's possible, to do an evaluation? It's like, I don't know, I'm getting old, but like, and you mentioned that as well, but like going to the doctor, right? Like, you get an X-ray.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get annual checkups. Why? To see if everything's working fine,
That's
if the
right.
system is right. I see the same thing, but I would like to get your perspective, like, that you have a real case example of being in the business now, running BizScout. What would be your advice to sellers right now in terms of knowing where they are standing?
It used to be, if you're thinking of selling in the next 12 to 18 months, reach out to us here at BizScout. Now, because we've actually been talking to sellers, now it's reach out to us if you're thinking about selling in the next 2 to 3 years. Because that's how important it is to actually start running your business like you're selling now, so that you have a long enough history to where you can show the potential buyer that this is not a fluke, that this is how this business actually operates. It operates at peak efficiency with clean financials. And then if you're ready to sell, then you can actually get listed and sold quickly and cleanly. If you don't, then you're mad dashing and you're trying to manage your business and it's potentially going down and you have to go get all the cleanups and you have to get responses back to the buyers and to the brokers. It's too much to do all at the same time. If you go get prepped early and then just maintain that level of cleanliness, you're way ahead of everybody else. If I could go back, I would have thought about the exit value much earlier. Most owners wait until they're ready to leave, and that's honestly too late. Preparation drives multiples. If you're thinking about selling in the next few years, start preparing now. And if you want to understand what the market would actually say about your business, that's exactly why we built BizScout. New episodes of Bobby and Builders drop every week. We're breaking down real stories, real valuation lessons, and real mistakes to avoid. If you're building with an exit in mind, follow the show, subscribe so you don't miss what's next, and we'll see you on the next one.